Welcome to the Playbook. I'm Taylor Mounts. This is a story and a show about behind the scenes in sports business. And I'm really lucky to have as my guest today, my inaugural first guest, not only a friend, but a former boss of mine, Nick Cartan, Executive Vice President, Head of Commercial Strategy at Playfly.
I
Uh,
appreciate it. I didn't know I was the first guest.
yeah, dude. That's how I tricked you.
Okay.
I
You're
won't really.
looking very podcast official. You're looking like Bruce Buffer with the microphone, and you look ready to go.
I feel good about it. I really do. I really got into the part. $40 podcast, boom, on Amazon. I'm going to brag on Nick a little bit. Nick's been Fox Sports, World Surf League, Throw One, and now Playfly. President of Playfly Sports said when they hired Nick, as we look to understand, exploit, and measure and monetize fandom better than anyone, we wanted a new enterprise level person touching everything we do commercially. And Nick is that person. So, Nick, congrats. Welcome. We're just going to do like an opening tip here. So, we're just going to start with the opening tip and tell me what's on the top of your mind in sports business world at the moment.
Goodness. I would say the two things that are probably pretty relevant right now in the broader sports conversation. I think that what's going on with YouTube TV and Disney right now is quite pertinent. I'm a YouTube TV subscriber, have been for a long time. So I'm following that pretty closely. And then a sports betting situation going on with the NBA and other leagues right now is something that I think we're all keeping our eye on, both as casual observers, whether you gamble or not, and then certainly with the industry that we're in and the money that flows from betting operators into leagues and teams is quite relevant for us. But yeah, I think that the YouTube Disney thing is fascinating for me right now. For listeners who don't understand or maybe saw some of the headlines there, essentially YouTube TV and Disney failed to reach a carriage agreement, which caused the streamer to drop ABC, ESPN, SEC Network, the kind of family of Disney channels from its service over the weekend. And it's a pretty big deal. I think I saw something that said ABC is averaging 7 million viewers per college football game this season. And so that's millions of dollars in ad revenue, even with just the portion of viewers that come through YouTube TV. If you're like me, one of 10 million subscribers on YouTube TV. You've gone from paying, I think when I started, I was paying like $35 a month, $40 a month. And now I'm paying $85 a month before the Red Zone package. Companies like Disney spend more money on live sports rights, and then they sell the carriage and distribution of those rights for that content to a cable company, or in this case, a streamer. The consumer demand is really what is driving the value of that. And then the monthly subscription goes up because the price for YouTube goes up to acquire that content. So the more streamers have to pay to distribute that sports content, the more you and I have to pay as consumers. And in this instance, I think there's quite a bit of finger pointing. Disney saying that YouTube TV isn't paying fair market value for the content. And YouTube TV is saying that Disney is intentionally driving up the pricing on that so that it's driving up high costs for the consumers and ultimately will steer people like me or you Disney's streaming service rather than their own. So it's pretty interesting if you follow it. I'm not sure how it is going to get resolved, but I need it to be resolved by Saturday because I like to watch some college football.
No, I'm one of those guys that cut YouTube TV and went to Fubo, not realizing that Disney owns Fubo. So kudos
Yeah.
to them for getting my money.
Yeah.
Let's riff on that a little bit. I think 5, 6, 7 years ago, everyone got streaming because it was supposed to be cheaper than cable. When you look at the different media distribution out there, whether it's ESPN or Paramount or Apple TV, where do you think there's a point where the consumers are going to say, no, I'm not adding another streaming service?
Yeah, streaming wars have been happening for a while now. I think we're all voting with our dollars, and we're voting with our dollars for content that we want to watch. Obviously, for me in my household, the only reason why I have live TV is to watch sports. Without live sports, I don't subscribe to any of them. We've got our Netflix and maybe some of the other programming stuff, or my kids or watch streaming Seinfeld or something, but live sports is driving all of it for my household. So I'm paying $90 a month just to watch those live sports, whether that's my local kind of RSN and get I have my brother sign in from San Francisco. I live in Los Angeles. My brother signs in to my YouTube TV once a month from San Francisco so that I can get
Everybody does it. Yeah.
Oilers, Sharks, and Giants games. Yeah, that's why I have it. So everybody's voting with their wallet right now. And there will be winners and losers. And essentially, like, streamers have just recreated exactly what broke up cable bundles, which is carriage fees, acquiring different content and pushing that content together. And people are either voting to watch it or not watch it. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. But I think similar to sports fandom in general, people only have the capacity to be a fan of so many sports teams, to follow so many leagues. You and I are probably aberrations because we're in the business and probably just unhealthily obsessed with sports. But I think for casual sports fans, like, they maybe have time to follow their 3 teams or whatnot. And so with more sports coming in, attention spans needing to be bifurcated further, there's only so many hours in the day that people are willing to dedicate to something like that. And I think that the same is true with TV distribution, that there's only so many hours in the day or so many programs that they're willing to take on. It doesn't make sense to have 6 or 7 different platforms that you're subscribing to. I think that'll continue to consolidate over time. And there'll be
No, I totally agree with you. And I love the point of voting with our wallets. With your position at Playfly, and again, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about Playfly as a business, but because you guys are in such a unique position across both college and professional sports, how do you feel that affects your guys' top line, bottom line, and also how you operate across the different verticals that you guys have for Playfly?
Yeah, I think Playfly has gotten big. I think now we're 1,300 plus employees. We're on 2 continents now, and we have a meaningful business position across college sports, pro sports, media, sponsorship, consulting, valuation, and it is becoming more and more difficult to swim around Playfly's position in the marketplace. We're even just thinking of the media business, which I work closely as the leader of that division. Our stakeholders are media owners, so the content owners, live sports content owners, the agencies that are buying that, the brands that are investing their money into those media positions, and then the property side, the leagues, the teams, and how do we keep all of these stakeholders together and growing the health of our overall commercial ecosystem. But there are a lot of moving parts, and each one of those 4 entities that I just named, they all have their own headwinds and challenges and opportunities, and everybody is developing together from consumption behaviors, pivoting from linear to digital and streaming. How are each one of these entities reacting to that? How are budgets being created? What choices are advertisers making, are the operators making to distribute that content to their fans? And then what choices are the fans making? How are they wanting to consume it? How are they wanting to interact with live content? So yeah, I mean, we're sitting on it every single day. We're having these conversations, thinking through evolution of the industry and the ad industry, and also how are we adjusting our strategy to be in position to capture that demand, that shifting demand over time.
Yeah. So look, you've been at some big places and have built up verticals and divisions of companies. When you look at the Fox Sports College division, which I worked under you at, World Surf League, Thrill One, Playfly, how hard is it to keep increasing revenue while also increasing headcount in a business that is constantly changing every minute, every hour, every day?
I think, like any business, you look for the opportunities, you look for the trends, you look for the ways that behaviors are changing, that spending is changing, that budgets are being created. And then you look at yourself and you say, is my business set up to create demand in those areas and capture demand in those areas? If we are looking at a pivot from consumption behavior from linear to digital, we can look at our own digital business and say, are we set up to capture that demand? Do we have, if you're just looking at streaming consumption, do we have the infrastructure and the strategy and the salesmanship to go out and create digitally native budgets that are being carved out of our broader media business and saying, we only want to spend this money digitally? And are we able to go out and command premium rates for these native digital budgets to go against our streaming product? One, staying in digital, what is our strategy to capture programmatic, this automated transaction platform that companies and agencies are now setting aside separate budget to go out and transact in this way that's much more dynamic in pricing and it's much more automated. It's a different spend than that direct digital business. And how is our business set up to capture and create that demand? And then you can look at things like social, and you can look at other ways in which brands are trying to engage with fans outside of live stream and do a diagnosis of how are we set up to capture that demand. And I think from my perspective, I'm constantly doing a diagnosis on how is our business oriented? Are we set up for the future? Are we a leader? Are we chasing? What are other people doing that we should be learning from? How equipped and skilled is our sales team to go out and create and capture? Are we educating the market enough with our solutions and also with what other people are doing? So it is easy to stay engaged and easy to stay motivated when the landscape is shifting as frequently and consistently as it is, for us to not lose engagement for how to get better, how to find organic growth.
Yeah, said. I'd like to go back to what you said about learning from what others are doing. Who are some companies, brands, teams, leagues, properties that are doing a really good job and you guys are looking at it as, hey, let's check out more of what they're doing and let's try to replicate it?
It's interesting. So this is my first time in the agency space, and you went over a couple of the properties and companies that I've worked at in the past, some big, some small. Easy to give compliments to some of our perceived competitors. Everybody does a really good job, specifically in the areas of focus that they have. And so if you look at a Wasserman, and like their superpower is in their brand consulting, and that is how people know them. If you look at Legends, their superpower is in this event management and hospitality space. You look at CAA, their marquee asset sales division. They're good at so many things, but their marquee asset sales division is what pops to mind. Paul Danforth and his team over there. If you look at Excel, their talent representation. If you look at Playfly, our core superpower and the thing that we do really well is this media space and our ability to leverage our position in the local media, national media landscape, national media across local distribution landscape. It is what opens up doors for all other parts of our business to be successful. And I think that the same is true with all of these other agencies. Everybody is leveraging the core thing that they do really well, better than any of their competitors, and using that to open up doors for other lines of business to go out and generate revenue. And so we're no different. A lot of our sponsorship opportunities are coming through our relationships with brands and teams and leagues that are leveraged because of the reputation that we have from a media standpoint. We just sold the jersey patch to the Colorado Rockies. We have a deep media relationship with the Rockies. We have a consulting relationship with the Rockies. Same with the Twins. And so it has opened up for more lines of business. And I think each one of the agencies that sometimes look and sound like us, we each are trying to leverage that superpower into more business opportunities. Does that make sense?
Shout out to the Rockies, man. That's great. Who is the jersey? What's the brand that you guys did?
York Space Systems.
Love it.
I'm just going to take credit for something I had nothing to do with. York Space Systems, first ever aerospace company, but all the hallmarks of what you would be looking for in a jersey patch partner. They are local. They're well resourced. People might not know that they're headquartered in Denver, that they employ a huge percentage of employees in Denver, the impact that they're making in the aerospace community, and their desire to host new scientists, current employees, use it as an employee retention or attraction, and just show the community of Denver that they are a local company, and show that outside people who may be watching Rockies games, God bless them, that they're a company that is worthy of consideration. So all the
100%
hallmarks that you'd want in a jersey patch partner.
In the position of where you're at, of macro and micro, of looking at things from a regional perspective, local, national, and then global. How do you guys think about connecting the local, regional with the national? I know for you guys have a lot of different divisions, but is there a lot of synergy across those divisions from a standpoint of, hey, we just signed this jersey patch partner for the Rockies. I think they'd be good at a national program here.
Yeah. So for a long time now, we've represented the Rockies' national media sales across their local distribution. The Rockies went from a local RSN under the Major League Baseball TV distribution. And with that, we stepped in to help them run their local media sales as well. So now we run national and local media sales for them. Had a consulting agreement with them to evaluate their commercial business and the value of things like patch and things like other rate card items. And then they hired us to sell their patch. And so we do have so many different things that different services that we can lean on to drive revenue for brands, but we want to be thought of as revenue maximizers for our partners, and our ability to help in a consultative way to help them drive revenue across any one of those verticals. Could be ticket sales, it could be commercial valuation, obviously sponsorships and media sales, but it is, as far as triangulating our resources, high level of communication. It's not easy. We need to make sure that we have proper accountability and communication, just like any organization would. But also, everybody gets excited about these opportunities. It's not like something like that could ever fall through the cracks. We're focused on it every day. We're excited about it, passionate about being in market, passionate about the storytelling around the Rockies, and really good relationship with their ownership group and their executive team there, which helps.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, we're going to do a little segment called Over Under. We're just talking about sports betting, but I'm going to throw out a few trends. You tell me if they're overrated or underrated.
Okay.
Okay. NIL collectives.
Oh gosh. Pass. I would say properly rated. Like, it is a competitive environment out there, and everything is an arms race. It used to just be an arms race for coaches and facilities and things like that, and that hasn't gone away. But now it's an arms race for on-field talent. I think that it's properly rated. It is a big deal. It is important, and it's being treated as such. But I would say that, yeah, if you want to win, you got to have players.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And look, you and me are both big college football fans, so I think like it is fascinating to see and hear about some of the budgets that are going into some of these teams that are coming up. Texas Tech is a top 10 team. In Indiana, look, I don't know what Signetti's doing over there in Indiana, but kudos to them. Yeah. It's great for college football. I love it.
Yeah, I think the thing for me, a fan of remuneration for athletes, always have been, is the transfer portal for me. That, just speaking from a fan and not a business executive, it's a transfer portal for me that, like, I would love to see some sort of a regulation, but just some sort of reeling in. I don't like that everybody's a free agent every year. It's nice to fall in love with the players. I know in college, it's far less fickle and player reliant. You're in love with the school or the logo or the tradition or family history, all of the things that drive the value of that collegiate audience. But it would be nice if players wore the same helmet 2 years in a row.
That is what is interesting about college versus professionals, is that you look at a new school versus old school fan, right? If you're a new school fan, if LeBron goes to Cleveland, I'm going to be a Cleveland fan. And some of these, Indiana, some of these guys have been fans forever. They've been terrible. How do you think that affects the business model, good or bad, for some of these teams that say, hey, we have Cam Ward 1 year and then he goes to Miami, or we have Carson Beck 1 year and then he coincidentally, he also went to Miami. But
yeah.
So how does that affect you in your mind? Yeah, just purely from a fan perspective. I'm not talking about from your position at Playfly, but I think for me, I've always enjoyed, I'm a huge college coaches fan. Like, love Lane Kiffin, love all those guys that are like the Kirby Smarts, the Dan Lannings, right? So like for me, that's who I follow. But as a fan, are you really in tune into, I can't believe this player went here? And would you ever follow that player or be a fan of another school?
There's a lot to unpack there. Lane Kiffin, love the call. Probably the most desire. It's just amazing how guys come and go in college and their stock rises and falls. I was on the plane at USC. I was at SC at the time through our relationship with Fox Sports when Lane was fired on the tarmac.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Fun anecdote. I just watched that 30 for 30, the many lives of Lane Kiffin. It's awesome.
Tell me about what's good. Real quick. Hold on. This, I didn't know this. So you're on the, can you walk, if you can, and you don't have to, but walk me through, when you guys got off the plane, did he just stand on the tarmac and talk to the AD?
It was far less dramatic from where I sat, because I didn't know anything until the next day anyways. It's not like we're all staring out 11A window. It's like dramatic exchange. There was an article that was written about it, I think maybe a year later. I learned more in the article than I did from sitting on the plane, but yeah, I wish that I had more information on it.
No, that's great. And look, I'm such a fan of his because he was so hot and he failed and then had to go back to be a coordinator, and then he went to FAU, and from everything that he has of changing his life around, like, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. I think talent always finds a way, and he has proven to be talented from a young age, and he's had a pretty interesting career, again, stock rising and falling, but I'm really happy to see him. Same with Sark. There are a lot of coaches that have bounced around and had their stock rise and fall. Happy to see everybody doing good. But let me just go back to your original question. So when Jalen Hurts goes from Alabama to Oklahoma, I don't think a single fan of Alabama was like, I guess I'm a Sooner fan now.
So,
That like
yeah.
transferability of fandom just does not exist in college. The faces under the helmet change, but like it's the helmet. I think that's somewhat true for sports. I think I was maybe like the last generation that is very staunchly like, my team is my team and I'm never going to a different team because I just am a Bay Area sports fan. And then I was trying to think, and people, Mark could correct me on this, but LeBron was probably the first time where people are like, I'm totally fine being a Cleveland Cavaliers fan and then being a Heat fan and then being a Cavaliers
100%.
fan again and then being a Lakers fan. That's fine with me. And I have no shame about that. And I just like the guy. He's probably the first time that I can remember doing that or witnessing that.
You think a lot of Bulls fans
I've been
became
college sports.
you think a lot of Bulls fans became Wizards fans after
Oh,
MJ went to
yeah.
the Wizards? Yeah.
Everybody was like,
Right.
I'm all in on the Wizards now. Yeah.
No, and look, another one I want to talk about is for you, and again, this is a little peek behind the curtain for people. You knew at Throw One, you signed at the time, and I think it still is, largest partnership in action sports history with A-Shock. I want to talk about the deal you did and then come back to a deal you wish you did of one campaign that's really moving you right now. But can you give a little peek behind the curtain of how that all came together and the pride that you had and obviously signing that largest partnership in action sports history?
Yeah. Largest partnership in action sports history, pretty relevant or pretty relative, I guess. I'm not sure who we beat out there, but look, I think that deal, most of the deals in my career have been products of just understanding need. This was an emerging brand in a very competitive legacy category of energy drinks. They were looking for a way to make their mark. They were looking for a way to cut through the clutter and unseat Red Bull and Monster and Rockstar and some of the other kind of major players in the space, particularly in this endemic world of action sports where energy drink it's just as much the brand as it is the product, and very like the identity of action sports is very much tied into energy drinks and just like that whole category. So it was an opportunity where we were to pull together enough opportunity to understand exactly what they're trying to achieve and across skateboarding and motocross and rallycross at the time. And we were able to leverage our ambassadors, leverage our intellectual property, leverage our media relationships with ESPN and our traveling events to drive enough value for them, get them into a multi-year deal to unseat a couple of incumbents and understand what the brand was looking to do. They needed to be impactful. They needed to cut through the clutter. They needed to leverage celebrity and stardom in order to penetrate the community. And we were able to build a platform to allow them to do that. Another like decent example, when I was at World Surf League, IKEA, who had never done any type of sponsorship in sports ever before, I got in touch with them, with their team out of Sweden. And it was, hey, what problem are you facing? And starting there, and it was that they had a misperception that because they were mass produced, that it was poor disposable quality. They thought that people, maybe because when you move out of your college dorm and you finish with your desk, you'd throw it away, and that it was that sustainability wasn't important to IKEA. And we were basically able to leverage the authenticity that surfing has in the space to engage the community and gain that credibility for the brand by developing a completely customized line of sustainable products that were submitted and designed and ideated and merchandised in partnership with the surf community. So there's a lot of UGC people saying, hey, we need this, whether it's a wetsuit hanger that's made from sustainable materials or just other things that it was coffee table made from reclaimed driftwood that was recycled instead of like composite wood. And we all flew out to Älmhult, Sweden and sat with their design teams and got to be a part of that ideation process. And we named it Corsavia, which is the only surfable wave in Sweden. And IKEA made an entire WSL surf-inspired line of merchandise that went out to a ton of stores, and it did really well commercially. And to market it, we were able to leverage influencers and content, and we had watch parties from the content that we had created and product marketing and activation. And it was pretty inspiring to just see a company that they really didn't care about marketing. They cared about telling a story to a community that they thought it'd resonate with. And it was a really fun campaign to be a part of.
That's great, man. I didn't know you went to Sweden. That's fantastic with IKEA. It's to your point. That's a dream partnership. Look, it's been about 30 minutes. We kind of want to wrap every episode with things that you've learned. And what is the one unwritten rule that drives success for you in your world? And then what's one principle that no one teaches you until, you've lived it in this business? So one unwritten rule that drives success. Let's start with part A. Yeah.
Unwritten rule that drives success. I'd say that most of the things then I'll say for my career, most of the things that have determined my success have been learnable, trainable, effort-based things. You don't just come out and all of a sudden you know exactly what to say, exactly what to do, exactly how to act, the answers to every question. Like it is, especially having a sales and commercial background, sales is learnable, it's trainable, it's effort-based. That to me was always inspiring because if I put in the work and the time, that I'd be able to achieve and continue to set goals and try to achieve them. But it made it very tangible for me.
How does that show up day to day for you in terms of being an executive leader? How does that show up every day when you're dealing with so many different people, entities, et cetera?
Yeah, I think one, like it's humbling once you know that like you don't need to know the answer to every question, that even being in a leadership role, it doesn't mean you need to know everything. It's okay to not know everything, to seek answers, to lean on teammates for their own expertise, especially in my role. I've always been maybe not had quite as much experience as the people that I have been leading. And that makes it, if you're willing to be self-aware, that makes it really easy to lean on your teammates to help to educate you and try to gather as many facts as you possibly can and make the best decision with the information you have at the time. So I think that it manifests every day because you're always trying to learn more. You're always curious about the business and trying to gain new skill sets, and talented people around me make that really easy.
No, it's so funny you say that because I'm reading a book called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. And he talks a lot about when we look at getting our ego in the way, that's when a lot of people fail, whether it's greed, et cetera.
Yeah.
Look, you've worked for a lot of different places. Have you seen that show up in a negative way from a leadership perspective? And how does that permeate down to the organization?
Yeah, I think don't remember the Titans line, but attitude reflects leadership. Like people will act as their leader acts. If you're negative, or if you're hard on people, or if you're a know-it-all, or if you have a big ego, I think that your team will take that trait and embody that trait and think this is either okay to act like this, or I'm just trying to reflect the attitude or the output of my boss. And I think we all do that. And that's why having leadership and having leaders in your company is extremely important, because that attitude rolls downhill. And so, yeah, good and bad all the time within my own companies over the years, or companies that I've been adjacent to. Like you can certainly see the attitude of the folks underneath the leaders reflecting the ideology and the operating procedures of the boss. It's critically important.
Yeah, of course. Last thing. If you get a 25-year-old watching this, right, and they're like, I want to be the next Nick Cartan. And it's just starting out in the industry, what would your advice to them be? What would your advice to them be?
I think like anything, if you want to achieve something, you have to stick with it. Like this career, you'll have to make sacrifices early and find out what you're good at and just keep going. So I think persistence is one. I think two, surround yourself with the smartest people you possibly can and ask questions and utilize their strengths. And again, be very open to learning. But I would say try to access people's minds that you respect and that are driving where you want to be, and be hungry and ask them questions and be very curious about developing your own skill sets. But nobody can do it alone. So I would say be very mindful of who you have around you that can help you, who's willing to help you. I think you can find out pretty quickly who wants to help, who doesn't want to help. And you tap into the folks who are willing to be on your team, and you try to create as many opportunities as you can from there.
Yeah. No, look, this was awesome. And I really appreciate you being on. There's some things that I didn't even know about, which is fantastic. And again, you worked for so many different big companies and have helped build them up. And I have no doubt you're going to keep doing the same, and can't wait to see where Nick Cartan is in 5 years. I don't know. So we're excited. All right. That is the playbook. Thanks, Nick, for being on. And I'm Taylor Mounts. Wait for episode 2 coming up in a couple weeks.
Amen. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.